Hello, everybody, and welcome back to yet another very exciting episode of the Friends Talking Fantasy podcast. My name is Charles, and with me today, as always, is my lifelong friend and co-host, Dylan.
Ready to talk some fantasy with my friends, Charles.
Oh, yeah, we say friends again today because, Dylan, we are joined with an international bestseller, are we not?
Yes, we are. We're lucky enough to be joined by MJ Kuhn, author of Among Thieves. Welcome, MJ.
Hi, thanks so much for having me on, guys.
Yeah, we're pumped. I mean, it's so cool. We've gotten the chance to interact with you a decent amount on social media already, but it's nice to meet computer screen to computer screen with actual faces on the computer screens rather than just little avatars.
I've very much been enjoying following your meme battles back and forth on Twitter, so I feel like I already know you guys.
Yes, that. If you've been following our meme battles about the lies of Locke Lamora, then you pretty much know everything you need to know about us.
I've got the whole
Charles,
dynamic down. Okay.
That's great. I'm the one just who's been trying to get his friend to read a book that he would definitely enjoy for over a decade. And Charles is the extremely obstinate one who refuses to do it. And
because
that's
you're
us.
Trying to get him to do it. I see this.
Thank you. Yeah. See, she gets it. Yeah. So, it is what it is. Don't need to hash that out now because, Dylan, we have so many questions ahead of us here.
We definitely do. So, MJ, like Charles mentioned, Among Thieves is your debut novel, and it's now international best-selling novel. Woo-hoo. And so in case someone has not yet contributed to that those best-selling numbers yet, and they're listening to this podcast, we want to give you the chance. We know you're in marketing, like Charles here. Okay. So we're gonna ask you to put your marketing cap on, and how do you elevator pitch Among Thieves to these folks who haven't yet read it?
Love it. So I have a couple options for elevator pitch, which I know is cheating. But so the first one is for people who haven't read a ton in the cross genre fantasy stuff. So for those folks, I always say that it is Ocean's 11 meets Game of Thrones. Because I feel like that gets kind of obviously the heist, but also the humorous vibes from Ocean's 11 with the fantasy, but also the constant backstabbing and betrayal of Game of Thrones. For people that are a little more, maybe have read Six of Crows and have read The Lies of Locke Lamora, Charles.
What?
or some other books in that genre. The elevator pitch is 6 thieves team up to steal a magical artifact from the most powerful man in the world, but each member of the team is secretly plotting their own betrayal. So may the best thief win kind of vibes.
Yeah, and that's something that's so fun about Among Thieves is, you see all of these heist novels are surrounded with rogues and you'd think pretty selfish people, but for some reason they're all banding together typically to work toward a common goal. But Among Thieves subverts that by having this whole group where everyone actually is out for themselves. Everyone's got a secret and everyone's got a plan to betray everyone else. So that was something I really appreciated about the novel.
I really enjoyed writing it. I always had wondered, I'd read obviously a ton of different heist stories and seen the movies and all of that stuff. And I had wondered kind of the same thing where it's kind of rare that you see, you see a little bit of backstabbing, right? The Italian Job is pretty famous for that. Obviously, I guess, spoiler alert for the first 20 minutes of Italian Job. But, it's just one jerk. It's not a whole team of jerks where everybody's kind of the a-hole, if I may, which is kind of what I wanted to explore.
Yeah, I mean, it's so much fun. There's so much witty dialogue and classic rogue stuff. So I wrote a review of it a little while back. So we can try to link people toward that. But our highest recommendations to check this awesome novel out. And we'll be discussing a lot more about it, but we want to get into it's going to be spoiler free this episode because,
yeah, because people might not have read it yet. We're not going to ruin the fun.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So we want to get into some questions about you, MJ, get to know you better. And we're wondering, when did you know you wanted to be a fantasy author?
So, I mean, like as close to, I don't know, birth as possible. I mean, that sounds really cheesy. And I feel like most of the writers I know have low key known they wanted to be an author or a writer forever, right? I think it's just one of those things that you discover that passion for stories really early on. Now, the question of when did I actually like take myself seriously in that desire and start actually actively working towards it is a very different answer. Because if you'd asked me in the 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade, what I wanted to be when I grew up, it would have been a screenwriter, a novelist, right? Something very creative like that. But then, somewhere along the way, you start to go, well, I should be more realistic. I should, do this, that, and the other thing and go to college and do this and get that degree for, all the responsible reasons. So I did that. Which, is great. And I have a great day job now, which is why I'm able to support myself through, writing these books. So it's not like it was a bad move, but I didn't actually start actively working towards writing novels, finishing them, editing them, trying to get them published until I was about 22. So about 7 years before I got published was when I actually started probably putting 20 plus hours a week into it. So
nice. Well, that's awesome that you're able to get 20 hours and a full-time job. I can only imagine. I don't know how you have time to watch Miss Marvel at all.
But you make time for Miss Marvel, okay? Priorities.
That's true. So you mentioned then it's been over 7 years now. So 7 years since Among Thieves got published. And I imagine then there were other novels previously, trunk novels that might never see the light of day. What was that process like for you?
Yeah, so it's funny. I feel like in various conversations, I have answered differently as to how many trunked novels I have, because it's kind of hard to keep track. Not because there's like 30 of them or anything, but just because of like how it played out. So I always say Among Thieves was either my 5th or my 6th novel. And the reason for that is the first thing I wrote was like, right out the gate, I'm going to write a full trilogy of fantasy novels. It's going to be great. I'm going to write them all before I query so that they're ready to release. I didn't know anything, I didn't know the industry. And hindsight, not the best plan. So, I had those 3 and then I tried to like condense them into one standalone. And then, so I kind of lost count, but either 4 or 5 novels that I wrote before I wrote Among Thieves. I actually got signed with my agent on the novel before Among Thieves too. So we edited and pitched an entire project that ultimately ended up getting trunked before we started pitching Among Thieves to publishers too. So, it's been a long road. But that's pretty normal for most of the people I know. So, if anyone listening out there is currently in the query trenches or on sub or, writing their first project, hasn't even started, reaching out to agents yet, like hang in there. I know it sucks, but.
So right. I'm kind of interested in how did you go from like an aspiring author with a full-time job, putting in the work, to then like, what was the moment where it was like, oh, this is going to get published. I'm actually going to like get this book on the shelves at some point. What was that transition period like?
Well, it was slow.
Right.
It's still slow. It's still kind of happening, I feel like. No, publishing is really slow. You guys know that. I feel like a lot of folks that are close to the book world know that. And my journey was even a little slower right at the finish line because COVID hit. So I signed my book deal in mid-2019. I was originally slated to have Among Thieves published in fall of 2020. And then obviously the pandemic hit, the lockdowns hit, and a lot of books got pushed back. And, originally we were pushed back to early 2021, but then all the books from 2020 were pushed back to early 2021. So we got pushed back again. Right. So, it was such a slow burn that I feel like it really took probably about maybe 6 months after the book was out for it to really fully set in that like, oh, dang, it's like out there and like people can read it. Like, wow. It's kind of.
So you had mentioned that one of your previous books got trunked. What do you think what do you think about Among Thieves that got it through to that next step versus the novel you were previously shopping around?
So I think a part of it is that Among Thieves is a stronger project. The one that got trunked, I say all the time, and I say this, when I'm talking to people who are queering, and I'm talking to like myself when things aren't working out for my current next step, right? Where it's like, I wanted so badly for that trunked project to get published. And now that Among Thieves got the deal and that one never did, I am thankful that one wasn't my debut. Because I now know it wasn't the strongest project I was able to produce for a debut, which there was no way to know that without hindsight. I also think a big part of it, though, is so much of publishing is luck. I mean, that sounds really frustrating, I'm sure. And obviously, as the writer, creating the best work you can and putting as much heart and effort into it as possible is huge. But like you can do all of that and still struggle to get, just catch the right person on the right day and the right mindset. Right. To get the deal. So, because with Among Thieves, the actual like going on to getting the deal happened really fast. It was, I think, maybe 2 months, which is quite quick. So we got lucky. Yeah. We got lucky. We hit the right editor on the right day. With a project that I think was, the strongest I could make. There you
go. Yeah. And you make your own luck. It's not, sometimes we talked about this. We just had Sarah El Arifi on. We talked about this idea of like the overnight success because hers moved unbelievably quickly. I don't know if you heard about this, but it was like 10 days from what was that, Charles? It was like it was 10 days, right?
Yeah, she sent the book out to publishers and then it got picked up and she was signed in
within 10 days.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I mean, A+. I can't imagine the whiplash from that though, can you?
It was a very unusual tale for sure, but I'm sure as we're Dylan's going here about the make your own luck thing.
Right. And she had a similar story of working on, I think for her, it was like one novel that she just kept tweaking and tweaking and tweaking that she looks back at the same way you look back at yours. It's not her best work. And then after years of that, that's what I'm saying. After years of that, she had to put that aside. And then in maybe it was like 4 months, she said, she wrote The Final Strife, and then 10 days, it's accepted all that stuff. But the overnight success is something that you build and you build and you build toward for years. And then that 10 days or 2 months, which is also super quick, it's like you've been really putting yourself out there with all these novels. And
you've been grinding for the better part of a decade before you get your overnight success. Exactly. Even for the ones where it happens quick once you get to the finish line. So true. So true.
Right.
It's not like this is the first thing I wrote. Let's see what happens. It takes a while.
That's rare.
And it seems like Among Thieves to me too. It's the shout line, right? It's as simple as like, Ocean's 11 meets Game of Thrones. It's like, okay, like I'm good. I got it. So like stop right there. Let me check it out. And I think that's what helps it along too. It's like when you've gotten your story down, you can cut through the noise a little bit with an interesting premise, with a hook. And you can communicate that in 11 words or less, it becomes very effective. And I think I see a lot of that in this too.
And some of that is from being in the query trenches for so long, because I was pitching all these projects unsuccessfully before I got, signed in 2017. And, you're having to hone your query letter, but also, I found my agent in a Twitter pitch contest back in the days when it was 140 characters, right?
Oh, wow. That's particularly impressive.
You get used to being concise, which I do think is helpful,
Sure.
Yeah, no, that's so Twitter is actually good for something then. I spend a lot of time on there, as you know, MJ. So I'm hoping something will come of that
I think
one
your
day
Twitter
for me
is
too.
delightful. Anyone that's not following you on Twitter should be, because your tweets, I always feel like a creeper because I'm liking like all of them when I see come up, but it's not my fault if every tweet you're making is fire. Like, it's not my fault.
Thank you, MJ.
Don't
It's definitely
encourage
not
him
your
too
fault.
much now, MJ, because he needs to be like the slightest level of desperate still. If he gets too many compliments, he might slow down a little, and we need those likes. Every like we can get counts. So I'm just trying to keep him working, keep him busy.
All right. Well, speaking of that social media side of things, MJ, we would be remiss not to bring up that you are hugely popular on TikTok. I mean, last I checked, you were at like 33,000 followers on there. I'm sure it's gone up even since then. So
like that. Yeah, I would say like not hugely, it's not like I have like 100K, but yeah, no, way more followers than I had ever anticipated or was like ready to deal with on TikTok. Yeah, so if anyone, any of your listeners like video games, the main vibe of my TikTok, like it is a book talk account. I do a lot of just regular bookish content, but the main thing that I do is I will, show you a book or a few books that you might like to read based on if you loved a video game. And I started the series just because like literally I read one of my friends, Hannah, H.M. Long. I read her debut novel and it reminded me of Skyrim. And like I just decided to randomly make a video about it. And randomly that video. And at the time, I think I had fewer than 1,000 followers on TikTok. And that video got like 300,000 views. And I was like,
wow, nice. Viral sensation.
What is happening? Yeah. But it's fun. You don't realize how many cool nerds are out there, right? Like people that are nerdy in like exactly the same way that you are. So yeah, it's been really fun. It's been a good time.
Yeah, and it's a great way to bridge the gap between gamers and then getting them into the fantasy genre, because there's so much fantasy content out there in video games.
Well, and probably my favorite comments that I get, other than the people that recommend me books back, which is awesome. I've gotten a lot of great recommendations from other people on there too. But I've gotten a few comments, or several actually, from people that are like, this is amazing. Like, I haven't read a book since high school, but I love this game. I'm going to pick it up. It's just like, yes, we're getting people back into reading. I feel converting them. Yeah, I think assigned reading in school sometimes beats people down where they're not able to read what they want. And so they think they hate reading altogether. And yeah, so I hope that by connecting it to video games, we can help some people rediscover how awesome reading can be.
Totally. I mean, when Mr. Miller used to force me and
not our English teacher.
I bring up Mr. Miller. I know. I brought him up on I'm just saying when he would he's a delightful man, but when he would make us read books for the class, like the same books, I'm going back and I'll read them now. I'm like, oh, this is actually great. But when I'm reading them for homework, it's not the same.
In that age, 15, when I don't know, you have distractions. Well, I guess we have distractions now too, but I feel like there's more compelling distractions when you're 15 and you're less equipped to ignore them.
Right.
And not all the books were that exciting either. It wasn't Ocean's 11 meets Game of Thrones. It was like Johnny Tremaine. Okay. It was like, I'm a silversmith in Revolutionary War times. It's not quite the same a lot of times.
Fair. Yeah, you always have to read like the old school classic ones in school, which some are good. Some
are good. That's fair.
Yeah,
Great Gatsby.
That's a good one.
There we go.
I like short ones. Yeah.
I got bring us back to TikTok though, because Charles and I, we're millennials. You've outed yourself as a millennial on TikTok because I've watched those videos.
So brave of you, by the way.
I know, right? Gen Z lands.
So, we're all millennials here. And we're wondering just like if you have any advice. We're actually thinking about getting on TikTok. So can you help us? I don't want to end up like, remember when we were younger and like we'd make fun of the adults that would be calling Facebook my face. It's like, that's how I feel. That's what I feel like I am now about TikTok. I'm like, I don't know what they're doing on the Talkstagram now, but
Talkstagram. I have never felt so old and out of touch as I did my first couple days on TikTok, because like literally I was just trying to like film and post a video, and there were things that I was like, this should be intuitive. I bet it's intuitive for people that aren't 100 like me, and and I was having trouble figuring it out. But yeah, no, I mean, honestly, I think you guys are going to be fine on Book Talk. Book Talk has a lot of over 30s. I don't know exactly where in the millennial camp you fall. I'm in the over 30s millennial camp. Like I think hashtag over 30 Book Talk is actually like a hashtag on there. So like we aren't the only olds, all right? We're taking over, not really, but we're there.
Well, my 30th birthday just passed, so I might be too insecure about it still. I
don't know if we might be too young for that. 30. See, we are 30, so not over
I'm
30.
32, but I'm over 30 because I turned 30 a couple months ago. So like,
you might have a similar birthday to me. I mean,
also like high five. I had no idea we were all exactly the same age. That's like wild.
Yeah, I know. Charles is almost 31, by the way, so don't let him.
Wow, that's a friend right there.
We're all almost 31, Dylan, okay? Perspective. He acts like he's more than 12 months older than me.
I just turned 30.
I just
very
got
recently.
You, okay? Don't rush me.
Yeah. I'm still getting used to the whole thing. So, all right. So TikTok hashtag. What was it? TikTok, a Book Talk over 30.
I think over 30 Book Talk. I'm not 100 on that, but I'm pretty sure it's a hashtag. Don't quote me, even though this is recorded, so you are quoting me.
All right. Well, also, still on the social media topic. Said you've seen our memes.
Yes.
All right? And you're also an expert on rogues and thieves, obviously. So, do you think that it's time that Charles reads The Lies of Locke Lamora?
Okay.
I think so. Yeah, Charles has left the building. Oh no, you're still here.
So you have read it, MJ?
Every time.
You know what? Are you ready for this?
Mm-hmm.
The Lies of Locke Lamora is with a capital T, the direct inspiration for me to write Among Thieves. I'm literally not kidding. It was my favorite book in high school. And the world that Among Thieves is set in, Tamor, is a direct nod to Kamor, the city.
I was wondering that.
Lies of Locke Lamora. Yeah. So yeah, it was like literally the reason why I wrote this book. So yeah, you should probably read it. It's pretty good.
Well, I've got a copy or two around. Maybe.
You have two? Why do you have two?
Dylan, don't worry about it.
People keep giving them to him, and he's just not reading it.
I did buy one of those.
Dylan did. One of them was yours. The other one I'm actually giving as a gift. So.
Oh,
it just happened to be in arm's reach.
You're gonna give a gift of a book that you refuse to read.
Enough people have recommended it, so
you're like, it's gotta be good.
It's gotta be good. Yeah. So
I have two copies too, actually. Back there. I don't even know why. I'm not giving any away. They're all mine.
Keeping them all.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, all right. You mentioned Lies of Locke Lamora, by Scott Lynch. Huge inspiration for you when it comes to Among Thieves. What other fantasy novels or any novels did you cut your teeth on that served as inspirations for you?
So I always say that Redwall was my gateway to fantasy. I don't know if you guys were Redwall kids. I was a big time Redwall kid. So the Brian Jacques series, it's very wholesome, but also like kind of violent for kids. I mean, I don't know if it's actually intended for kids, to be fair. I think it was. I read them in 5th grade, but they're like real books. I don't know. I bought one recently and was like, okay. But yeah, so I was really obsessed with those as a kid. Obviously, Tolkien. I am a huge fan of the Lord of the Rings. The movies I have probably seen upwards of like 1 billion times. And, I've read the Silmarillion and all of that stuff. You know, I know Tolkien has some, you know, some questionable old white guy views, but you know, he the world building is really what I take from Lord of the Rings and from Tolkien. It's so expansive, which is, you know, it was influential. I can't deny that it was influential for me, from pretty darn young age. More recently, I would say like B. Schwab is like a pretty big influence. I also, this is like a super recent influence, so not at all for Among Thieves, but for pretty much probably anything I write afterwards. Have you guys read Kings of the Wild by Nicholas Eames?
Oh yes. So not only have we read it, we've had Nick on the show. So yeah, just as funny. Oh yeah, just as funny in person, or at least on the computer screen. Just as funny as you would think from reading Kings of the Wild, and fantastic.
Big Kings of the Wild fans, big Nicholas.
Yes.
I have not had that much fun reading a book, like a you know what I mean? Like I enjoy books, but had fun like that reading a book in a really long time.
You know, he came to mind when you were describing your shout line, because he had a similar thing where it's like once the premise clicks, like the rest of it, like the rest of it just moves sometimes. And that was the way he described his case, was like, I had written this other novel, it was over complicated, it was crazy, I was trying to be Guy Gavriel Kay, it wasn't working, and then I had this hook for a story, and then that was it. And I kind of get that sense from you when you were able to just right away, you know, sell us on the book with the shout line. I was like, okay, I like when you have a good premise, it all just comes together. And I think that's kind of a hard thing to do in fantasy sometimes, where it's like, well, you have this nation and then you have this nation, and due to a bunch of very complicated political ideological differences, they're at war now, and then you have this guy in the middle, and you're like, okay, well, what's it about? Like,
what does it boil to?
Can we get there?
The tagline is, it's Game of Thrones meets Game of Thrones, which doesn't really work as well.
Right. I feel like that's a common pitfall for fantasy, like,
and it is hard. I totally get it, because like you've created so much stuff and you have to kind of boil it down. But I will say, for Kings of the Wild, it having such an easy shout line, I've gotten like 6 of my friends to read it, because I just tell them that, like, hey, it's like a mercenary band, but like they're old now and they have to get back together for one last mission, and it's hilarious. It's like a chaotic D&D campaign on paper, and they're like, what? And then they read it and they tell me they love it, and I'm like, yeah, you're welcome, it's great.
Plus, if they're classic rock music fans, I mean, then that's like double. I mean, that's when I was actually able to get Charles to read, by the way. Like, there's an episode of me, it's like, the episode's literally called like Why We Have to Read Kings of the Wild or something like that. And by the end, Charles was actually like, oh yeah, that sounds good, let's read it. So
I would like to point out that I had to drag Dylan kicking and screaming and embarrass him publicly to read Lord of the Rings. Okay, so I'm not like the only one just digging my heels in. I've been trying to get this guy to read Lord of the Rings for decades. He's like, no. I'm like, bro, we cannot have a fantasy podcast if you have not read it.
I did read it.
He did read it, so we got
I mean, it's a bit of a slog to read in the modern age.
Yeah,
I'll give you that.
And that's why I wasn't like pushing him too hard, because I was like, he's gonna read it and it's not gonna be his favorite, so I can't like be like, you have to read it. Like the description of the trees, dude, is insane.
It's clutch. Oh, clutch. Yeah, if you're gonna read the Silmarillion, I'd recommend doing it on audiobook, because it's just like I had to get through it on paper many times, and as like a pretty big fan, it took a long time. And then I did it on audiobook, and I was like, oh, that's like a lot better to digest.
There you go. Yeah, big audiobook fans over here.
Me too. Team audiobooks.
Woo! So much in common, guys.
Right?
30-year-olds who love audiobooks, at least.
Are we just like describing a demographic for Amazon right now?
It's our sweet spot, guys.
Oh yeah. Well, we're just doing it so we can try to get that sweet Audible ad revenue. So that's
here we go. Okay, now we're talking.
And we gotta appeal to our new like target audience on TikTok, right?
There we go.
We just talk about being 30 and liking books, and you drop a hashtag in. Right? And then you get 30K plus followers after that, right?
Yeah, it's a foolproof formula.
There you go.
Yep, that's it.
Yeah, I don't know if it's as good an idea as your video game match to book
Yeah,
situation,
we'll
but
skip past
we'll
the
workshop
whole
it.
write it international bestseller too. We'll just, bypass
That
that
sounds
also.
hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's difficult.
What is it? Eh.
I'm not sure that I had nothing to do with it.
By the way, on the Kings of the Wild stuff, so
Yeah.
super funny novel, and that's something that I love about Among Thieves as well. So I wrote in my review that you had me embarrassing myself in public because I'd go to cafes and then I just start laughing out loud. I'm like, oh, I'm alone, like by myself, but amongst a group of people who luckily were usually nice enough not to stare at me. So it's something that we talked to Nick about too. Like, how do you balance humor in a story that also does have a lot of serious and poignant moments as well?
Yeah, it's tricky. I feel like I especially so I tend to err on the side of comedy and have to like come back and dial it down later. And I think that my I don't know, trick is to like really try to strike a balance and like weigh the narrative importance of a darker moment. And if it's like a very narratively important moment, like maybe no wisecracking for a moment, let the moment sink in, let the reader feel the feeling, and then give the reader a breath and maybe a chuckle for a minute before we head back into the darkness. Yeah, I think that's kind of what I really enjoy. I've been seeking out a lot more comical fantasy novels lately because fantasy does get so dark. Even the lighter ones, right? Like even the lightest fantasy novel I know, I'm pretty sure there's murder in it. Like, it tends to be a darker medium. And so I think adding some levity is, it's just helpful. And it also, I think, helped for me with Among Thieves that I just happened to create a set of characters who most of them responded to like trauma and darkness with sarcasm and humor.
Yeah.
So I feel like even I could sneak in a few moments where maybe a moment lands, even if someone makes some remark because they're feeling something, even if they're deflecting. But yeah, it's challenging, but super fun.
I mean, that definitely shows up with your main character, Raya. Am I saying that right? Because I didn't do the audiobook version of this one.
You nailed it.
Hardback back there. So, and I think I heard you on another interview. I wish I remembered which one, because I want to credit them. But you said something like that Raya, she hides from her, like the people pursuing her by changing identities, and she hides from her trauma through humor. So
Actually, you know what? I think that was the host on Conclave Cast that said that. I won't even take credit for that.
Shout out.
I thought it was
really?
They said that. Yeah, because I don't think it was me that said it. Maybe it was. I don't think so though.
I'll GIF one of my things I've been doing as much.
Yeah.
No, I'll GIF you saying it, MJ. That's my other. I haven't been using it as much lately, but I like to make GIFs on Twitter. So we'll see if I can find it. Sorry, go on, answer. I'm distracting from the actual question.
No, well, what was the question? If that's the case, she does. She, I think most of my characters are the crux of why they're so willing to betray each other is that they all are very closed off emotionally. None of them for various reasons, right? They all have a different reason as to why they don't believe that they belong with this group, or maybe they don't believe they belong with any group. And so, their natural impulse is to look out for number one and push everyone else away. But yeah, for Raya in particular, her chapters were some of the most fun for me to write because, of course she has quite a dark past without spoiling too much. I would say for folks, check trigger warnings if you're concerned. She has a pretty dark past, and I think that her just deflecting with always sarcasm, always humor, shows us a lot about her and her unwillingness to kind of confront herself and her past and her feelings. Oh God, never confront her feelings. So yeah.
And that's something that's awesome about. I feel like now the roguish characters that I most like are those that have this, they have that funny, like nothing gets to me exterior, but underneath you have that, like, I just do this because I am so hurt and so emotional down here that I can't let you see any of that. So I love that about Ryan.
Right. You know what it makes me think of? It's a meme I saw back in the days of like old school memes, right? You guys are 30, you'll get it. It was like a picture of like, those like fancy kitchen cabinets that like, I don't know, maybe your grandma has that have glass on the front so you can like see the stuff inside. Mm-hmm. And all you see are just like a bunch of like bowls and plates, like just pressing right up against the glass. And it was like, what I'm telling you, why I can't open up. Because like, obviously if you did all the dishes, they're going to spill right out if you open that cupboard. That's kind of how I picture Raya. She keeps it all bottled up because if she's going to let something out, it's all coming.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. And I want to say more, but obviously there's a spoiler free aspect of it. But so you have a bunch of point of view characters, not just Raya. I think altogether it's 6. I think one of them doesn't get a point of view until the epilogue.
So really late, yeah.
But I'm curious when you talk about that. Do you have is Raya your favorite character? Do you have a favorite character? Like you said, she was really fun to write. But yeah, let's hear it.
Yeah, so Raya is really fun to write. I have a favorite. It's my secret favorite, but I've said that like to 500 people, so it's like my not so secret favorite. Is Nash.
We're not getting a scoop. Oh, no. Nash
is my favorite. I always feel like if I was gonna like go get a beer with one of them, like I feel like I would want to hang out with Nash. Like she seems the most genuine and the least like likely to stab me, I think.
Right. Or steal your beer.
Yeah, I mean, right. Like not that, she's not exactly sunshine and roses either, but she is one of my favorites of the group. And Evelyn, I think, was also another one that was really, really fun for me to create as a character, just because of her journey. So she's, for folks that haven't read the book, Evelyn is at the very beginning, she's a guard. And she has a very early on fall from grace. That's how she ends up with our group. So she's kind of on a very tumultuous internal journey throughout the whole story.
Yeah, and she's a lot of fun to read because of the contrast with all the other characters. She's super stiff among all these other thieves who've just been under, in this dark world of thievery for so long.
Right? It's kind of like she's like a law-abiding reader's like view, right? Where it's like, she's kind of a bit of a stick in the mud, but also you're like, oh yeah, I mean, like everyone else is like trying to steal boats and stuff, like that is dangerous. I get it.
That's
Go ahead,
you can go ahead, Dylan. You can go ahead. You got it. No, I insist.
Okay, fine. So we've done like almost 200 episodes and we still can't get on the same page about it. So all right. Well, I was gonna say it's something that does is it keeps it grounded in reality. And if you're just surrounded, like this is probably a problematic term, but I can't think of a better way to phrase it. Like they call it the straight man in comedies, right? Like you have someone who's supposed to, by contrast, by being someone that's just quote unquote normal, surrounded by all these
like your Jim and Pam in The Office, right? Like everyone else in the show is like a little bit out there in different ways, and at least in the very beginning they're very clearly supposed to be the like self-insert, like, oh, I can see myself in this office through Pam, right? I get you.
Right. And Ryan before he went completely.
Wow. That's true. Yeah, Ryan was that for a hot second, wasn't he?
Right. Like the pilot episode, he's like the new guy who's coming in and like, he's like, whoa, what's going on in this crazy, wacky office? And then by like season 4 or whatever, he's like stealing bowling shoes from from his bowling alley as he quits. So Office spoilers
right there. Yeah.
All right, Charles, you had a question.
Well, I'm glad you went first because I was going to change the subject. My question has more to do with about earlier on when you were describing Among Thieves. You were describing like twists, among betrayals. I wanted to get more insight into the process of like how much do you like visualize beforehand of like, hey, I want these betrayal moments to happen. This would be so cool if this happened. How much was part of the discovery as you were writing? Like, how do you balance and keep track of a book that has, you know, intrigues on top of intrigues, top of twists on top of twists? You know, how do you even begin to tackle a story like that?
Yeah, it was a project. I'll tell you that for free. I am a big time plotter. So on the like plotter versus pantser debate, I have tried to pants or like, for right by the seat of my pants, right. Without a plan. Yeah. I've tried to pants a novel twice. The first time and the second time, actually both times, I ended up with about 50,000 completely unusable words. Oh, no. Just went nowhere. And I say completely unusable. I should clarify that the world from the first pantsing attempt is actually Timor, the world of Among Thieves. Oh, the entire story got scrapped, but the world got to stay. So maybe not totally useless. But that's when I was like, okay, nope, I'm a planner. I got to plan it out. So for the heist piece of Among Thieves in particular, I plotted it out using Excel. So, like intense, like story beat by story beat.
Marketing background.
Right? I had like columns for every single character arc and subplot and everything else, every story beat. And then I went by scene on the rows. And I filled in which scenes am I going to be hitting on which character arcs, which story beats, which, and where am I putting my world building details in, all of these things. And then, color code it and zoom out just to make sure that it looks like a complete, I don't have any big holes that I'm noticing anywhere. Like, I forgot about this character arc for 6 chapters. That's not good. And, it worked pretty well. I did have to rewrite the entire heist sequence several times, which was, it's one of those things. Everything is so interwoven. Like you said, it's, twist upon twist, betrayal upon betrayal. And you pull one thread or you change one story piece and then it, knocks over 6 other dominoes. So for all my planning, I had to rewrite a whole bunch anyways, but I think that the character moments did stay roughly the same throughout all of the drafts. So I think that was like my homing beacon right. that I was always coming back to. Right. So we always have this same pair ups, the same moments where we discover a betrayal, the same moments of character growth. Right. I think all of those stayed the same. It was just maybe the impetus for those particular story beats that ended up changing like 10 times.
Well, that makes sense. So it sounds like you always had your characters to come back to when you found yourself getting in trouble with all the intricate heist aspects of the plot. And that does make me wonder, something I wanted to ask is, are you that rigorous in your planning process when it comes to the characters as well? Is that something they get built from the ground up, or do they come fully formed, or depend on the character? What's it like for you there?
Yeah, character building, I think, depends on the project, on the character, on the day. For the most part, I like to really be careful about planning my characters. So I'll do like a whole character sheet. And then I conduct character interviews. This is before I start drafting. So like I'll create a list of like 20, 30 questions. And I'll ask my characters, especially the people I'm going to do POVs from, but even sometimes I'll have some non-POV characters that are going to be big, have a lot of dialogue, things like that. And then I'll answer those questions in their voice, just to get a sense of who they are, how they talk though too, which is just a godsend when you come to actually drafting, because then you get to a point where you need to write dialogue and you already know what they sound like. I will say though, I've had situations where a character has like popped up while I'm drafting and I'm like, who are you? You're more fascinating. You have any right to be. And then they end up sticking around. So that has happened too.
Yeah, and that shows. I think the voice of your characters is one of the strongest parts of Among Thieves. Like, and even just this is something that I know you've been reading some Joe Abercrombie novels from watching your social media posts, and we had Joe on too, and he's one of our favorite character writers. And
Yeah. Oh my gosh, his
uh,
character work is incredible.
Top
yeah,
notch.
and I'll say some of how you wrote the prose, like for me anyway, like noticeably different depending on the point of view that we're in. Like I know Evelyn's one that stuck out where just like the prose would usually where it's like Ruddy kept coming up, and I could tell it's intentional, not like an author tick thing where
Yeah.
it's like, but yeah, that's kind of what Joe Abercrombie does too. And I was like, oh, this is awesome. I really feel grounded in the character, and it's so cool. I just want to say I appreciate that.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it's super fun. You know what I also do is I always read my books out loud to myself, like pretty late in the like middle stage drafting, like before I send them off to my agent at least. And I'll try to do like a different voice for all the characters, which I am not like an audiobook narrator. I am not an actor. They are bad. They're like, it's dumb, but like it helps me identify whether all of the sentences in the chapter, even if they're not dialogue, fit with the voice of that character. It's like I don't know, it's a silly mental trick, but it kind of works for me. I don't know.
And you will be releasing the recorded MJ Kuhn.
They'll never be recorded. Right? They will never be recorded.
That would be some good TikTok material, though.
Right.
Oh my gosh, right? Yeah. You hear me like, hello.
Yes. Do like a Patreon, and that'll just be the highest tier. Just
there we go. Yeah, no, I would never take your money for that.
Well, I want to make sure too that we discuss the upcoming sequel to Among Thieves, because I know recently you were able to announce that it's coming out in summer 2023. What's going on with that process right now, and what can you tell us about what to expect from your second novel? See if we can get a scoop here, Charles.
Yeah, I'm super excited to share with you guys Among Thieves. I know it was like billed originally as a standalone, but it has always been a duology in my heart. So I have had the sequel planned literally from the beginning. And I'm so thrilled that I get to share it with anyone that wants to read it. So what you can expect from it. So there's, going to be a lot more banter, some more humor. You're going to get a lot more betrayals. It is a slightly darker storyline than the first book. And it is a conclusion to the story that we started with Among Thieves. So,
gotcha.
For anyone that thought Among Thieves was a standalone and read it and went, wait a second, have no fear. You will get an ending.
That's a big thing right now in the publishing world, right? Is this you try to sell standalone with sequel potential, is what I've heard. Is that kind of how you sold Among Thieves?
Yes. And honestly, like when I had said that, I had pictured like if it was going to be a standalone, like the epilogue wouldn't be in it. Because to me the epilogue, like it ends and then the epilogue is the part that's like just kidding, so which I think is how epilogues generally work, so that's not necessarily news to anyone, but yeah, so that is how I sold it. But I had always hoped that we would get the chance to tell the second part of the story, because I really hope people are going to like it. I hope that they'll be entertained and find more to love with the same characters and some new additions to the story. So, yeah.
Nice. That's exciting. I already have it marked as want to read on Goodreads, so I'll be keeping tabs on that, MJ.
Yeah, those Goodreads librarians, they are so quick. I think that listing was up there literally the day the sequel was announced. I was like, okay, guys.
Wow.
Yeah. I might only have of books not out yet. It might just be right now Thick as Thieves and then The Doors of Stone. So I do expect And I'll get Thickest Thieves in my hands before book 3 of the Kingkiller Chronicle.
I mean,
Unless he stealth drops it before summer 23.
I was gonna say it could just surprise everybody. He could pull a Taylor Swift and be like, dropping tonight.
Yes, like a folklore situation.
Yeah. There we go.
Yes.
Don't
Charles
get
knows
Dylan
that.
started, please, on Taylor Swift. We don't have enough time left in the episode to open that door of conversation. That is a door that best be made of stone and closed.
Oh.
What have I done?
Yeah. We'll stay away from topics of Taylor Swift and Counting Crows because we probably are getting relatively close to that hour.
Noted.
But
it's always good.
The good
Yes,
thing
go
about
ahead,
summer
Charles.
23, though, I want to say, is that I'll actually be over 30 by that point. So we can go ahead and start spamming that
over.
hashtag as
He might be
launch party.
32.
You can use
Depends when in the summer, okay?
When in the
Depends
summer.
when in the summer. Right
If
now,
it's late summer.
we'll coordinate it so it's when you're 31.
I appreciate that. Not 32, because then it will be like, where have you been?
Yeah, too late at that. No, I'm just kidding.
Right. Once we're all 32, we're officially irrelevant. So you gotta get it out while
no.
we're still 31.
We have so little time left.
No, clock's ticking, MJ.
Isn't
I'm
it like
sorry.
18
But we'll
to
be there with you.
34? Isn't that like the demographic?
You're the marketing people.
Demographic. Yeah, there you
That's
go.
like as relevant of an age as you can have. So we've still got some years.
4
guys.
more years.
Exactly.
Okay, that's so much
Yes.
better.
Yeah.
If you're gonna go marketing, I should go psych here and just say you're always relevant, no matter what your
Aw.
age is.
See, this
There
is
you
what
go.
we needed from this. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so Thickest Thieves. It sounds like duology. Then you said we're not going to get a surprise. It's a trilogy next, are we?
No, I do have ideas, actually many ideas written hastily in a notebook for like other stories within the world of Among Thieves. So if there's interest, if it sells well enough, basically, and I can get publisher interest, we could explore further if people want it. But even if nobody wants more, it will be done. You will get an end.
I'm sure people will want more, MJ, but I'll say too, I saw a tweet a little while back. I think you said you had like 9 projects that you were actively trying to get going. And one of them that you mentioned was a cyberpunk novel that you're working on. Can you tell us some about that?
Yeah, it's super fun. I'm not under contract for anything other than the Thieves sequel at the moment. So like nobody get too excited. I may never get to publish it. But I've been having a great time writing it. It's the first time I've written anything that's not fantasy in a long form. So it's been I did so much research for it because, it's uncharted territory for me. Both in like, nonfiction research. And then I also read like a bunch of cyberpunk novels, also just because they're very fun to read. Yeah. So, but yeah, the work I have, it's a standalone. It's currently with beta readers right now. So fingers crossed that they like it. And they're like science people too. So they'll call my liberal arts self on all of my nonsense that I didn't get right. Hopefully. So I can fix it before it gets further. So yeah, I'm really, really stoked about it. Hopefully it goes somewhere.
Nice. Yeah. What was it like writing something that different? Did you feel intimidated? Were you just so excited you didn't notice?
Dude, I had so much fun being able to like reference technology. You have no idea how much easier it made things to be like, oh, well, this character can just like call this other person. Like, you know what I mean? Like you get so used to not using any of that. And then you can and you have a superpower all of a sudden.
It's faster than sending a raven.
Right. Seriously though. It's like, oh my gosh, they could just boop, calm them on their little ear comm. Oh,
Right.
now they know. Look at that.
Imagine that's a huge perk. Gonna have to invent something like a waygate or a portal. You just they just called.
Right. And don't have to like invent all these like travel. Like, look, they just have trains. They have cars. Like is a thing. they just go. So yeah, it's been a totally fun experiment, writing something totally different. I think I'll do some more sci-fi projects probably down the line. I've been big sci-fi reading bent lately. I think it's just like where my brain wants to be, for whatever reason. So I'm exploring that a lot.
Yeah. Any recs that you have for us? And we don't delve into sci-fi as much as maybe we'd like to. We can, friends talking fantasy. So
well, it depends. Like if you're into are you into space opera sci-fi?
Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah. I don't know if you read Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, but that's a great one.
Oh, no, I haven't. I will have to check that one out. I have not read that one yet. I have read, so I actually today, or this afternoon, I finished reading Seven Devils by Elizabeth May and Laura Lamb, which basically the best way I can describe it is it's it's very Star Warsy in the sense that it's a group of rebels fighting against an empire in space, but it's totally female-led cast, lots of diverse rep. I really enjoyed it. But yeah, so The Last Watch by J.S. Lewis. If you guys haven't read that, it's been described as the Night's Watch in space. So another Game of Thrones comp. That one was very well. Yeah. So I'll send you a list. I got a ton.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
Rex.
It makes me think of Artifact Space, right, Dylan? By our
yes,
Christian Cameron.
The wonderful Christian
Miles Cameron is his pen name. I've read a lot of. I'm a big classic sci-fi guy, so.
There you go. Okay,
I've read
nice.
A bunch of those, but
yeah,
those are some good recs.
And you said Star Wars, similar to Star Wars. I know you piqued Charles's interest. So
if you want Star Wars novels, Rex, I've read a couple of those, but I always just assume people have already read all the Star Wars novels they want. So you know what I mean? I just kind of you probably. Yeah. You're into sci-fi and you're into books. You probably have maybe scoped those out, but you never know.
Yeah. Oh, and you mentioned books with great rep, of female representation. I remember I wanted to ask you because Among Thieves has great LGBTQ plus representation, and we're still in Pride Month at the time of this recording. We got another couple days here. By the time this releases, we won't be anymore, but still a good opportunity to ask you other recommendations for books that folks can check out if they're looking for more books with great LGBTQ plus rep like Among Thieves.
Yeah. So, there's obviously a ton. I know I've read a lot of the ones that a lot of people have been talking about. There's the buzz for Song of Achilles and for She Who Became the Sun, Prior of the Orange Tree.
Yeah.
And they're fantastic. But if you're looking for some of the ones that maybe haven't gotten as much, buzz, but still have a lot of rep. So The Perfect Assassin by K.A. Dorr. It's the Chronicles of Gadid. It's actually a whole series. I have not yet finished the series, so no spoilers if you have. but it's a great book. A Master of Jinn by P.J. Lee Clark. It's just fantastic. That's another one where it's kind of genre bending. It's basically, honestly, I kind of view it as a detective procedural, but in a fantasy Cairo, but also it's in the 20s. It's fantastic. Wow. It's really good. But there's the main character, or there's a lesbian couple as some of the main characters in that. The Unbroken, C.L. Clark. A lot of people did talk about that one as part of that sapphic trifecta that came out in 2021. But I just particularly really enjoyed that one a lot. So yeah, there's a ton of great stuff out there. And it's exciting. I feel like there's new books coming out all the time that have great rep in a lot of ways, which is exciting to see. So
for sure.
Yeah, definitely feel the same. It's got to read Priority a little while back, and and a bunch. And it's been so cool seeing a lot of folks have been giving all these recs for Pride Month. So and Among Thieves has definitely been mentioned a bunch. So it's so cool.
Well, and to just, clarify for folks who haven't read it yet, the romance isn't in a front seat in the story. So if you are looking for something that's romance heavy, that is very focused on the sapphic storyline. Among Thieves is not that. So I don't want to like give anyone like false excitement. It's not a romance novel. It is the heist plot comes very much first, but there is a like a subplot of a romance in there. So
right. Yeah. And yeah, go ahead, Charles. You look like you.
No, I was
going to say your
agreeing with
eyebrows
you.
went
Go
up.
for it. Please,
All right,
please go.
Yes, I got it, Charles. So, want to say, MJ, we are coming up on that hour over here. So I know it flew by for me. So I hope
so much fun.
Yeah, no, I mean, we've been super lucky to have you on. Obviously, we'd love to have you on again at any point if you're down. And I want to make sure, though, before we go, that we give you the chance to drop your social media handles, see if they can be your like 34,000 and first follower on TikTok. I'll give us all the places we can find you online.
Yeah, I'm a good little millennial. I'm everywhere. I'm on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I update some of those more than others. Handle at all of them is at MJ Kuhn Books, all one word. Kuhn is spelled Kuhn. And then also, if you just go to mjkuhn.com, it's got all the links on there too. So yeah, that's where all my stuff is.
And also has the Among Thieves official cocktail.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. Among Thieves has a cocktail. It was made by Pick Your Potions, which, they're an incredible job. And it's a very yummy cocktail. You can make it with either gin or bourbon, or you can make an NA version if you don't want it with alcohol. And it's delicious all three ways. So A+.
Yeah. And there's chamomile tea in there.
There is. There's
Charles.
Sneaky.
There's blackberries, and I should remember all the ingredients, but I don't.
Well, you have to go to the website and find out. You don't want to give them all.
Yeah.
You have to go to MJ Kuhn Books.
Yeah, for the rest of the details, go to mjkuhn. Yeah, where's my marketing background here?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Now we're all interested. Now we're all gonna have to go check it out and make it.
Yeah. No, there's tons of Among Thieves swag that people can be getting. And I saw there's a map, right? A map of Timor. I mean, we've got it. There were candles I saw at some point. Are those available for people to buy?
They're on Etsy now. Yeah. So, and she also has, and I bought them actually. I'll show you guys. I bought her other candles. So she made one that's based on Dune, that has like kind of a spicy smell. And then Night Wisp from Sword of Truth series, that is just like a very fresh, clean smell. So yeah, she's doing all kinds of like novel based candles. Super cool.
That is pretty
wow.
Oh, yeah.
That's really interesting. I kind of want. I wish I could smell the spice one from Dune.
Yeah, it smells really good.
Just
the
awesome.
smell notes for it's cinnamon and spice supported by undertones of desert sand and earth. So there you go.
Desert sand undertones, huh?
Right? Yeah, and it does. I mean, it does. It smells really good. So anyway.
Fantastic. Well, it sounds like we're coming up on the end, but I hope no one minds if I try and sneak in another question here. You are noted for comparing video games and books. Can we get a video game rec for fans of Among Thieves?
So I've had so much trouble with this. I'm not going to lie to you. And it's been like so frustrating because I never expected the like TikTok series to take off. And then I was like, man, I need a really good one for Among Thieves. And I've had a few that like kind of flirt with it. So yeah, one that I think is close in a lot of ways is like the Styx games. So like Styx Master Shadows. It's kind of a infiltrating, you're sneaking around, but the character from the game is very sarcastic. Like the loading screen will roast you every time you die, which I mean, it's pretty entertaining. And there's only like 6 messages though. So like after you die the 7th time, you're like, shut up. Let me die in the game. And another rec that I've given is like the newer Tomb Raider games, mostly just for the adventuring female lead focused on finding artifacts, and then also just kind of the lead has maybe too few qualms about killing people, which I mean, could be said for a lot of video games. I can't officially recommend this because I have not played the game, but I've heard the game Thief. I've actually been asked by many people if I was inspired by the game Thief to write the book. And I was like, no, but I should probably play this game now. So yeah. Thief. If you guys have played it, if it's a good game, let me know. I should probably check it out.
I have not played it, but I know of it.
Yeah.
Seems like, thieves among thieves, or like there's got to be some sort of connection there, you would imagine.
Well, you're saying like the vibes of like, I guess the setting is similar. So I'm gonna have to scope it out. But yeah, so if you're a fan of the game Thief, maybe. Can't confirm.
Okay.
Yeah. Final Fantasy IX has some thieving crew elements to it, at least like particularly at the beginning.
So there you go. Okay.
That's another door that we're opening way too late. Is Final Fantasy. So
we need to get together. We'll play Final Fantasy. I'll make a playlist. It's gonna be great.
Yes. 100% down for that, MJ. And
this is just Dylan's Friday night.
I was going to do this anyway without you, MJ. So if I could hang out and do it too, that sounds awesome.
Perfect. Yeah.
Well, guys, you heard it all here. Be sure to check out Among Thieves. MJ, thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate all the time to come to talk to us and put up with us. We greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Guys, thank you guys so much for having me on. This has been so much fun. It's been great talking to you guys.
It's been great talking to you as well. Yes, Dylan, pleasure as always as well. He's giving me the thumbs up. Yeah, there we go. Always good stuff, guys. Thank you all so much for listening. Again, Among Thieves, MJ Kuhn, KHUN. Go check it out. And as always, guys, go forth and conquer, friends.